Welcome, Farewell fans. Welcome back to another interview. And today we have Glen on a microphone with us, and we are talking about several different things today. We're talking about divorce. We're talking about parent alienation, and then we have a host of other topics that may come up as well. Glen, thank you for coming to the show. How are you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic. Thank you.
Well, glad to have you on the show. Glad to talk about this topic. I think this is a topic of what everything else that we discuss is probably something that's most overlooked from time to time. So, but before we get into that, can you just give the audience a little bit about who you are, background, and everything?
Yeah, I'm Dr. Glen Robinson, profession. I'm a physician and surgeon of the foot and ankle, podiatrist. A little bit about me. I was told I'd never make it into college because I got a 7 on my ACT score. And so when the high school counselor pulled me in and said, good luck getting into college, go be a farmer like your dad or go to Votech school, I was like, what's Votech school? And so I set off on a journey. So I'm a very goal-oriented person. So the first goal I wanted to do was to get into college. And then I'm like, okay, I'm in college now. I want to become a doctor. And so I set goals out. In fact, to lead into your podcast here, my ultimate goal was to be a father and to be a husband and to have children. And so, and we'll talk more about that. But yes, I made it through medical school. I did a 2-year surgical residency. And I even went to Tonga on a medical mission to fulfill a promise to my best friend back in college. And it was an amazing trip. Now I've been in practice for 26 years. I have my own private practice.
Okay.
And I've started writing books. You can see a few back there. So Healthy Dad, Sick Dad, Luminary Leadership, and then Success DNA that just came out. So yeah.
Okay. So let's talk about your books. Okay.
All right.
Let's talk about Healthy Dad, Sick Dad. Give the audience just a little bit of taste of what that book involves.
All right. So when I was in medical school, my health went south. I mean, before medical school, for summers I fought fires, and so I did that for 5 seasons. I was very, very healthy, and in college, you never think you're going to get sick. You just that never comes to mind. And so when I got into medical school, every little ounce of time I had to use to study. So I resorted to Costco muffins, root beer floats, $1 tacos. And over a year or so, that started to catch up, and I found myself in an emergency room crawling in with this tremendous pain because I was peeing blood, and I didn't know what was going on, and I had given birth to a kidney stone. And I was like, oh my heavens, this is painful. So unfortunately, that didn't stop because my eating habits didn't stop. I was just eating on the run and going, and I wasn't really paying attention to my health at all. So I'm trying to see where I want to go with this. I have had many experiences with that health issue from going home to my brother's wedding when I was in medical school and having another kidney stone attack. And when they injected that dye into me to see where the kidney stones were, I had a severe anaphylactic reaction. And so I actually have seen the other side. And I came back after 4 hours of resuscitation, they said. So I'm going to springboard now a few years later. My health never did really fully recover. And here I am. I'm married. I have a little boy and a little girl. And I was still trying to fight the back pain, still trying to find a bunch of things. But when my little girl, 2 years old, was in severe pain, and she came up and said, Daddy, could you please help me? And I was like, what's going on? And in her few words that she could say, she says, it hurts to eat. It just hurts to eat. And she couldn't eat without pain. And so I took her to the ER. I took her to, other specialists like pediatricians, and they could not give me an answer. And so I had to step out of my kind of Western world medicine mindset and look into alternative medicine.
Mm-hmm.
And I had heard about this guy that could help people, and he actually helped me a few years back with my back pain um, in a natural way. And I called him up and I said, "Hey, could you help my daughter? It's been a month and she's not eating anything. She's in a lot of pain." So I took her down to him and handed my little girl over to him and trusting him. And he laid her on the table and he started going to work. And I'm sitting there, and all of a sudden I start hearing these gurgle sounds. And then my little girl just stood up and said, "Daddy, I'm hungry." And I was like, "Oh, whoa." And we took her into the kitchen area and gave her some food, and she had no pain. And I told this man, I said, "Whatever you did for her, I need to learn. And not only for my family, but maybe I could help a patient here or there." And so he agreed to say, "I'll teach you whatever you want to learn." And so I spent 15 years studying with him extensively. And that's the development of the Healthy Dad, Sick Dad. The Healthy Dad means he was my mentor for 50 years. And my sick dad, who I admired, and robust farmer, retired to his recliner. Heart attack starting to happen, and his last heart attack kind of did him in. And so he actually passed away before that book came out, right before it came out. So I got to see both worlds. I got to see this man who is completely healthy, no medications, that helped me on my journey to get my health back. And then I saw my father, who I started to see as the health go south. But it took my little girl, not my health, but my little girl to change that. So that's the story of Healthy Dad, Sick Dad.
That is profound. For one, my condolences for losing a parent, and knowing that your daughter was in this pain, and you had to seek alternative methods instead of just consistently going back to the same doctors or different doctors, getting second opinions, third opinions, just trying to figure out what was going on. You seek the alternative method to find a solution to the problem, which is admirable, because some people just can like some, well, what else can we do? Or, would try to find reaching at all kind of straws, trying to figure it out. And then the book in itself is interesting because, you're talking about two different people that has given you two different ideas of possibly what health looks like. Or perspectives of life, not what health, like perspectives of life and everything. And, one guy you study with and gave you, tools that you can use. And then, you said your dad was a farmer, and the life that he had went through as well. That both of those are very unique and interesting perspectives, because it kind of gives way to what this lifestyle ultimately leads to, and then what this lifestyle ultimately leads to, and going from there. And that's pretty miraculous. And you said that your health, after learning that, your health start to improve along the way. So did you change your eating habits? Implemented exercise? Like, what was the process from what you learned to implementation and the benefits?
Well, I'm smiling because my mentor, when he started working on me, he goes, "Man, it's working on you is like working on a bag of potatoes." He goes, "You need to change your eating habits and your ways so I can work on you." So the first thing that he says, "Look, I got to teach you nutrition." And I spent a couple of years just on nutrition, period. I didn't learn these simple manipulations that he did on my little daughter to get, that rib that had dislodged in her rib cage that was pushing on the nerve plexus that was causing her to hurt when she was eating. These things I learned way after nutrition. So he harped and harped and harped. I shouldn't say harped, but he taught and taught and taught me about nutrition. And so when I started changing my diet, for instance, what was the first thing I started doing? I started just going organic. And the reason why I go organic is there's less chemicals in the food. So I always look for quality of foods and less chemicals. Okay. And so it actually started tasting better, and I started feeling better. And then I started looking at the waters and the foods and everything I was doing. I cut out all fast foods. I stopped eating that. No more soda. No more of these quick food things. And I was like, oh man, I can do more. I just feel better. And so I changed. And, I'm still medicine free. I'm still active.
Okay.
And which has been a very benefit to a lot of my patients I work with, from diabetes to immune system to, whatever it is. But yeah, nutrition was the first thing I had to learn before any kind of manipulation in the myopractic world that I'm certified in now. I don't really practice that per se solo. I do implement that into my practice. So there's a lot of things. Yeah, we could even talk more about that. But yeah.
So let me ask you that when you talk about nutrition and changing
Yes.
your eating habits, now does that in did that involve like a detox? The detoxify the body as moving into the practice, or you just moved into the practice? Because I know some people like, well, you got to detox your body. You got to do this detox, and it cleans your body out and everything. And I was like, I don't believe in detoxes. Like, I don't believe that, you take this 1 or 2, 3 day soda remedy or drink mixture and your whole body just flush out like it's an oil change. Like, we just gonna flush you out and just put a change of oil inside you. Like, I just don't see that. I think if you just change over into a better eating habit, then eventually you just get better. Doing a 3, 4, 5, 7 day detox because you're drinking these drinks. I don't think that carries weight unless you're doing it like unless you're just doing something continuous. Because some people may do it for like those 7 days, detox their body, then go back to just doing whatever they were doing.
I think you're spot on. Yeah, I agree with you. And here's why, is because, over time, these little chemicals like glyphosate, I don't know if you heard that term, but if you eat anything that is a GMO food, such as corn syrup, or you eat vegetables or fruits that are not organic, you get this little chemical that they say that is safe for you, but it's not. It's Roundup, it's glyphosate. And that gets into your system. Well, where does that go? It goes into your fat cells and it gets stored there. So people that go on these crash course diet things, sometimes those chemicals get released and they can have a severe reaction. So
Mm.
what I personally do is I have what you call a daily detox mix, and it's just because even though I eat organic, even though I do everything pretty strict on me, I don't know what kind of things I'm breathing in or things that may be in my foods or in water. So it is simple. I take this little mixture in the morning, and it's talked about in my book. I use green blue algae, red marine algae, sodium alginate, apple pectin, and and yeah, and green vibrance, which is the probiotics. And I just put a little teaspoon of that into water with some trace minerals, and I shake it up and I drink that. So what happens is that it will bind any chemicals that's in your system, and it helps move it out. So as it works into the fat cells, it works into the air cells, it'll pull what it needs to take out. And so it doesn't allow you to go through this heavy detox that sometimes is a shock to your system. So it's something I do daily. And it's less toxic on you. It's not hard on the kidneys, like chelation, things like that. That if blasted out, chelation is good, but man, sometimes it can affect the kidneys.
Yeah.
So yeah, I agree with what you're saying. To jump on these detox and do it every 7 days or every 21 days. I just do a simple thing every day and just include it in my diet, basically.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the same way that I would think. But switching gears a little bit, and we discussed that, we're going to talk about, marriage, divorce, and parent alienation, which I am learning that is a lot bigger deal than anything. But can you take us back to what you were going through, or what was going through your mind when you were told to leave your home after 11 years of marriage?
Okay. So let me start with, that little girl that had that incident with that got me to change my ways of looking at health. The one thing I loved doing is when I came home from work, she'd run up to me and jump into my arms and almost knock me over. She was my love of my life, next to my wife and my other, three children. But the Jessalyn, that's her name. She would just run and jump and give me the biggest hug. And um, 11 years of marriage, yeah, it went south, and divorce happened. So to answer your question about alienation, I remember I'm sitting in court with my lawyer, and she's with her lawyer, and we brought in this professional psychologist. And my lawyer brings up about parent alienation. And I remember I said to my lawyer, I says, bring up this example and let the judge hear this. And I told the lawyer, I says, look, when I went up to see my little girl in elementary school, my little girl was looking around the corners and looking around everywhere. And this is my little girl, Madeline. And she's seen me, and she was really hesitant to come up to me. But I made sure I was in the waiting room of where the secretaries were at school. So there's a bunch of people there. We weren't alone. And then she came and sat by me, and then she whispered to my ear. She says, "Mom doesn't want me to see you." I go, "What?" "Oh yeah, Mom doesn't want me to see you." And I says, "Okay." I says, "But you're safe right here. You're okay." And so when he's sharing this example in court, he asked the question to this professional psychologist: "Is that parent alienation when a parent tells their child not to see the other parent?" And she goes, "No, that's bad parenting." I go, "What?" And so I realized my time in court, I don't have a fighting chance at all to as a doctor. They'd always refer me to as doctor, and I said, I'm not a doctor in the courtroom. I'm Glen Robinson. I'm a father of these children. And so they try to play that card. But as far as alienation, they'd always turn it around, even from the professionals. And so I had to go through that, even which almost destroyed me. So it was very, very hard because I wasn't getting the answers or help that I was wanting in the courtroom or from the professionals.
You know, when I think about parent alienation, I think about negativity. I think about some of the things that are said when you're not in a room. I think about some of the things that are said that are not in the most pleasant light. And what it does is that it alters a child's mind to perceive you as the enemy, as an outsider.
Yeah.
And this is a child that you have been around since they were a baby. Watched them grow up, may have been to several events of theirs. Like, you are a known person in their life. And now you're being looked at and treated as an outsider because of what, you and your ex-wife is going through. Now you're treated as an outsider. If you're some stranger that they are not supposed to talk to, they're not supposed to communicate with, you are their father, the person that, obviously helped bring them into this world, that have raised them, protected them, and shared, moments with, now is being outskirted to the outside. And as if you're looking into a situation that you had never had been in at all. It's just amazing how this ends up working out and starts to develop. And then as they get older, they get trapped into this mindset that this is the truth of the matter. Like, this is the truth. This is what been told to me for however long. And now this is true. So then when you try to be in their lives, like, well, I've known you to be this liar, or I've known you to be this abuser, or I've known you to be this or be that. And there's no truth to it. No basis whatsoever. And now there is a separation between you and your kids that you have to build back?
What I started going through is because I have 4 kids, and the oldest one would always say, Dad, I don't want to come on your weekend, because I did have dual citizenship, dual custody, and so that means half the time I'm supposed to spend with my kids, but because I had to pack my bags and move to the big city from the little town I was in. It was about an hour and a half to drive up there to get the kids, but I made the drive every single time that I had my time with the kids. And so, but what they were telling me is like, Dad, it's taking me away from my sports. Dad, it's taking me away from this activity and that activity. And I'd ask them, I go, well, do you really want to be with that activity, or you want to be with me? And at first they wanted to be with me, but then, missing their friends and missing the activities, and who knows what they were being taught, like being told what you're saying. I'm sure there was a lot of that happening.
Mm-hmm.
Little bit by little bit, the oldest one stopped coming. And then my daughter, who was a joy of my life, that would run into my arms and almost knock me over, she said, Dad, I'm staying with my mom. And then my little girl, littlest one, she stopped. And then it was my little boy. And I don't know if you can see over my right shoulder, that little boy with the he's like, with the shark's tooth on his, I painted that. And I had to find something to fix this mind of mine, so I had to keep my mind busy, because after when he left, man, I lost it. And I started painting again, and I wanted to paint the kids the way I seen them, and so that's one of the paintings I did. And it hurts. It still hurts today, thinking about them. But I haven't seen my kids in 10 years. But people say, well, you got to fight for them. You got to fight for them. You got to fight for them. And I kept hearing that and hearing that and hearing that. And the last time I was in court with my ex, I had to hire a very high-profile lawyer that didn't put up with any crap in the courtroom. And she finally let my ex know, look, if you threaten Glen again, then you're going to see the worst come out in me, basically. And she stopped all threats. I stopped going to court twice a year after 7 years of doing this. She told me something. She says, look, I don't know your ex that well, but if it was me, I would actually walk away from your kids. I said, I can't walk away from my kids. They'll always be a part of my life. She says, what I'm saying is walk away from this situation and leave the door open. But who knows what could happen. And basically saying that they could be throwing a false accusation against you, and you could end up in prison for something that you never did. And I don't want to go to jail. I don't want to go to that for some false accusation. So I stepped away. And it doesn't stop me from praying about my kids. It doesn't stop me from painting my children the way I see them, trying to reach out. But yeah, it's real. It hurts. But I think if there's a message from my journey of divorce, which is the hardest chapter I'm writing in my memoir book, is that when you're at the lowest of your lowest in life, realize that the equal and opposite effect is just a second away if you make that choice. Mm-hmm. Your greatest success can be shown to you when you're at your lowest point. There's an equal and opposite effect. So when I made that choice to say, okay, I'm going to breathe, I'm going to stay here on this earth, I'm going to treat my patients, I started to develop hidden talents, and I started to paint, oil paint. I started to write books, and started to do things I never even imagined. Now, does it take any away from missing my kids? No. But I have to understand, I always put this thought in my head that my kids are not my kids. On a spiritual sense, they were basically leased to me from God. It was just my duty to show them everything I could possibly teach them, show them, and help them with the time I had with them. But in all actuality, there's God's children. And I think we, as parents, have this notion that our kids are our possession, or we own them, and we don't own them.
Right.
One day they're going to have to go out on their own. And so our job, our duty is just to help them when we're with them. Because in the end, we all make choices. I had to make my choice. My ex made her choice when she told me to get out. You have 7 days to get out and pack your bags and leave. I didn't know why. That was her choice. I still don't know why today, why she told me to get out. I have my hunch when the guy moved in. But yeah.
So I got two relatable stories to that. So I used to work in the court system. And when I first got there, I worked in the criminal division. And probably like after 1 to 2 years, there was this case that happened. Okay. So it was a CSC case. And do you know what the acronyms mean for a
No.
CSC case?
What's that one?
So it is criminal sexual conduct.
Okay.
It's what it is. Okay. And it was criminal sexual conduct of a minor. So this father and this daughter father, the case against him said that, he touched her, so to speak, right? The father stood and said, no, that's not what happened. I didn't do it. Now, this is his biological daughter. Okay. Mm-hmm. And this is from what I'm hearing throughout the court system, because it was such a shocker that it came out. So she was on the stand. Now, if you're unfamiliar how a case, progresses, they have the investigation, they interview, they issue a warrant. The warrant goes to the court. It gets signed by the judge. Then it gets filed, gets a case number. Then they go and then they attempt to arrest a person, obviously if they can find them. And then they go through arraignment, and then they go through examination, determine whether or not it should be bound over. Now, I can't remember what degree this was, but they were having a conversation, and while on the stand, the young lady came out and said that that she lied against her dad because I think it had something to do with either him taking her phone or her wanting to go to a party, and he said no. So she came up with this story to state that he was touching her, and as a punishment for him not understanding the magnitude of the information that she stated. And she said on stand that she lied, and they dismissed the charges of the case. Now, I don't know whether the dad still is a parent to that little girl or not, but I know, and if it was me, I couldn't be the parent. I could no longer see my daughter the same way after filing such a severe case. I mean, even though this case is dismissed, it's still on this man's record. He still, not only is it on his record, he has to get on the I forgot what that list is, but he has to get on that list to basically let people in the neighborhood know.
He has to be registered.
Yeah, the register, the sex offender registry. So to let people know that he's in the area, he can't be close to a school, and they say that once you're on that list, you can't get off, regardless of the case of your case being dismissed or being not found guilty. So his life essentially has been turned upside down. There's no telling if he lost his job, if he has to move, or anything because of this accusation that was made that has now changed his life forever. So
Now do you see why I stepped away? I had to do it. I was not going to have one of those allegations come my way. I love my kids. I was not going to have that, especially when my lawyer told me, "Look, this." I don't know what I could say on here, but she says basically, if you don't do this, this lady is going to throw something at you that is so false, and you're going to be fighting in the court, and you could actually end up in prison. So
Yeah.
just walk away. And so that's why I had to walk away. I didn't know how crazy she would be. And I don't talk bad about her. I never talk bad about the kid's mom at all,
Right.
even though I'd never be in the same room with her right now. I was saying, you can forgive, but it doesn't mean you have to go to dinner with them.
Exactly.
So I can leave the past where it's at, and that's where it needs to be. But yeah, that's, if my kids ever listen to this podcast or what that, hopefully they'll know that I didn't really walk away from them. I was protecting myself
Yes.
and protecting them. So yeah.
And I'll be honest, because just like your kids, me and my siblings were in the same situation.
Mm.
You know, my dad had me, and he had a set of twins by two different women. Okay. And in both those cases, we were both kept away from him for 18 years of our life. No matter how much he tried to fight to get back into our lives, he was at some point in time ousted. Now, I haven't really heard my mom say anything bad about my dad. And so far as my siblings, I haven't heard their mom say anything relatively bad, like he's a bad dad or anything like that. Little smart comments are here and there and stuff like that, but nothing heavy or nothing too heavy or very harmful. Not speaking against his character. But I've seen my dad try to go see his other kids, and I've been with him and seen the conversation, seeing the interaction, and then he can't see his kids from what I've seen. But for myself, I went and built a relationship with my dad when I turned 19, because I felt like it was necessary for me to understand the other side of my family. And, I didn't have no beef with my dad. So I was just like, it's better for me to have a relationship with him and understand the other side of my family than to continuously not have a father in my life. Right. Even though having him at an adult age is a lot different than having him at a kid age, because I don't really see him as a father. I know he's my father, but I kind of see him like, yeah, we kind of like friends. Like, you my homie. If you don't like that, he like, no, I'm your father. No, that's a little iffy. We like homies. So, but we built a great relationship from the age of 19 up until now, and I'm almost 40. So, we own almost like a 20-year run. Well, a 20-year run with this relationship, which is beautiful. And then the same thing for my siblings. They were alienated from their dad, and they came around at 18. And I told my dad that this would happen. I was like, if they're anything like I think they are, they're gonna come to you, and they're gonna want to build that relationship, and then it's gonna be up to you to build the relationship. But he still kind of took it as like, well, I'm your father, and they're like 18, they're like 25 now, so they're like, you're like my homie. Like, we're friends. Like, you wasn't there during the parenting times. So it's kind of hard to parent, and I'm now grown, and I've seen some of the obstacles and trenches that I went through. So I say that to say that, in hopes that that at some point in time, whatever age that they are, that they come around and say, you know what, let me go hear the story from a different perspective. Let me go get my own understanding of the situation before passing judgment to say, oh, I just don't want to deal with my dad at all, based on what was said, or based on what happened, or he left me, or, he didn't try to talk to me. He didn't try to, because some kids think that, well, why didn't he chase me? Why didn't he come look for me? Why didn't he come and be part of why he didn't fight harder? And it's for those very reasons. That's what you're saying. The criminal charges, the allegations, and everything. It's the very reason why you don't want to go fight, is because it further can put you in a position where you can't have the life that you want to even come back into their lives, because now you're struggling. Because just imagine what criminal cases do to people. It prevents them to going into certain fields and actually being successful, unless you start your own business, where a criminal record just doesn't have any impact whatsoever, right? So had you went down that road and kept on fighting, and when it gets what your attorney said, you could have ended up with allegations and criminal charges, versus walking away and having an open door to say, hey, when you're ready, you can definitely come back into my life, because here's the open door. I didn't walk away because I didn't love you. I didn't walk away because I didn't care about you. I didn't walk away because I didn't want you. I had to walk away because it was more peaceful and protect my sanity. So when you decided to come back, I was in a peaceful place. So now we can have a wholesome conversation and not just a have conversation on the situation.
So let me ask you this: since you've gone through people always tell me, your kids will always come back to you, and I'm like, no, they won't. And they look at me funny. And I says, when and if they ever do come back, they will not be my children. They'll probably be adults.
Yeah.
And so, in that mindset, I don't see my kids ever coming back to me. But my door is always open to them as whenever they want to come back, if that ever happens. And so, in a way, I kind of feel like I've been cheated out of life. I miss the great moments of being there. I tried to go to my kids' soccer games and piano recitals and the plays that they put on. And when they see me, I mean, the oldest boy, he came off the field and told me, I won't repeat what he said, but basically told me, get off the field and get the hell out of here. And I left. And the anger, and I'm like, man, I says, okay, you have to step away. If there's only one person that they hate in life, or one person that they really hate at this time, let it be you. Let it be me. That's what I told myself. Don't let them hate your mom, hate their mom. Don't let them hate anybody else. And so if I could protect them just hating one person, that's better than hating 10 people or 20 people. So, yeah, I don't know what my question was to you was, but am I wrong in thinking that way as far as, my kids will never come back to me because they won't be kids?
So let me ask you this.
Okay.
But before I give my assessment, and Farewell fans, I'm going to give y'all a task. We're going to ask y'all help. With Glen's permission, obviously, we're going to ask y'all help. Glen, how old are your kids right now?
Okay, so I got one that just turned 25.
Okay.
I have one that will be 23.
Okay.
One that's 19, and then one that's 16. So she's still in high school. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Do they have the same last name as you?
No, the two older ones, they took they took different names, and the two younger ones kept my last name. Yes.
Okay. So believe that at one point in time or another, they'll come back. Okay. And this is why I say that. For my siblings, my younger siblings, there was a conversation that was had that changed their perspective on their dad. Well, on our father. There was a different perspective. There was a conversation that was had. There was a different perspective, and they went through the door. Okay. Now it can happen different ways. The kids can come together and have an epiphany and want to have that conversation, but it takes one person to start the conversation, and then there takes the owner of the situation to have the conversation, to create the epiphany, to open it for them to come knock or walk through the door, right? And then there are situations like these where, with your permission, I call on the task of the Farewell fans to share these videos of this interview and ignite the flame and set it across the nation, and in hopes that his kids see the video and look at the whole video and have the conversation to want to come to the open door. That's the task that I want to put out there to the Farewell fans, is to share it and share it again, because I believe that every child needs to know both their parents. It doesn't matter the situation that parent is in, but at least understand where the other half of you came from. For every child that's born, you're 50% of both parents. Okay. You can't know only 50% of yourself. You can't. And I think it's better to know and have the conversation and make the decision. So I put this task out there to the Farewell fans and to anyone to share these videos of the interview so they can ignite, catch fire, and in hopes that Glen's kids see the video, watch the whole video, and reach out, because it's important to know both sides of the story, because there's three sides of the story. It's the truth, it's their version, and then obviously was their person's version, and then there's the truth. So there's three sides of the truth. You can't live your life only knowing one side, because one thing that is consistent is that life goes on and comes to an end at some point in time, and we don't want to be left wondering what we should have, could have, and would have done in our lifetime that we did not get a chance to do. So Glenn, with your permission, I would like to be able to set that in motion with the Farewell fans.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
So Farewell fans, I implore you to share these videos in hopes that this reaches Glen's family and his kids, and they are willing to listen to the interview and be willing to open the door. I push that out there because I've always believed that it's essential. I wouldn't have went and approached my dad had I did not believe that it was essential for me to know my dad's side of the family as well as my dad personally. Because I know I act more like my dad than I act like my mom. Actually, I look just like my dad. I don't look nothing like my mom. But not only do I live that statement, I also resonated with my own son. I want him to know his mother. I want him to spend time with his mother. Even during the times where, because I had my son since he was 3. So even for the times where his mom wasn't around, I didn't badmouth her or anything. I didn't say nothing bad about her, but I always maintained communication with her and told her, hey, you have to get yourself in a better position for him. I'll take care of him while you put yourself in a better position. So then when you come back around, you have the ability to be stable in his life. And I'm not trying to take him from you. I'm not trying to steal him from you or anything, but I'm in a better situation to take care of him. You are not. I want you to be in a better situation so you can be able to contribute and take care of him. There's no, it wasn't anything malicious behind it or anything. And that was the real conversation that we had, because I believe that you need both parents in a child's life in order for a child to be successful and to be effective in life. And without both parents, it's always going to be something missing. It's always going to be something missing.
I liked what you said about the 3 sides, because I look at a coin having a top, bottom, and a middle. So there's 3 sides to a coin. So you have her sides, my side, and then the truth.
Yeah.
And I'm very curious. You said something that maybe you can help me out also with, and I'm doing a lot better. But I've stayed from the what ifs. What if this? I think that takes you back down up to the past of just a road that doesn't need to be traveled. I think too many people use their frequent flyer miles to the past, and they should be expired. But I think what ifs are a very dangerous place to go.
They are. Now, Glenn, let me ask you a question. And
Okay.
I know the fans are going to ask this. So I'm going to ask for them. And recently, have you tried to use any social media account to reach out to the oldest?
Yes, I've actually not social media, but text message. He did not get rid of my phone number, and actually, he reached out to me a few years ago, and he was in a situation where he was in college and he was working 3 or 4 jobs. he didn't have enough money to pay off his current schooling, and he just he called me up and said, "Hey, I need your help." And I said, "What is it?" And I met up with him, and he showed me the situation. Yes, it was about money and helping him pay for his last semester of college, but I did that. I says, "Look, I'll help you get through college." In my hope, I guess I put an expectation on there,
Mm-hmm.
me personally, but I only had him say, "Okay, I only ask for one thing. If I do this, send me a graduation card because I'd like to be there to your graduation," which he did. But I would have had hoped that he would have um, uh, been open to interaction and been open to phone calls and been open to more interaction. But again, that's the last time I saw him
Mm-hmm.
when he was the first to go. So it's been, what, 2 years now? And I will send out a text every once in a while and he'll respond to it. Like his birthday's coming up next week and I'll send him a happy birthday note and I'm sure he'll say thank you. But I don't know at that what else to do. I don't want to scare him off. I don't want to, jump in his life and say, "Hey, I'm your dad and listen to me." No, I can't do that because what you said, I wasn't there with everything he was going through. So I basically wasn't his father through his life. Yeah, is he angry at the situation? I'm sure he is. But um, social media wise, I've invited him onto, I think he was accepted onto my Instagram platform, Healthy Dad, Sick Dad.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I've tried the other three. There's no, I mean, right now I'm dead to them basically.
Well,
So yeah, there's that one that has.
well, if I can offer a suggestion,
Yeah.
um, when you send that happy birthday text, and plus, July birthday. My birthday's in July too, so July birthdays, got to give it up to them. With the happy birthday text, if if possible, can we have dinner for your birthday? Um, and I don't know if you've done that before, but try to open it up to can we have dinner for your birthday, and open up the conversation. One thing I had learned um, from this one dad, it's a little, and the situations are different, but it was this one thing of like consistency, right? And he was trying to be able to talk to his son. His son was young. So every end of the week they would go and they would have dinner. And for the first few dinners, it was always silence, because the kid didn't understand why he was there. And as time went on, the kid actually started to open up and have more conversation. Right. So what I say to that is having that conversation, saying, "Hey, do you want to have dinner for your birthday?" Okay, if we can make that happen, is it possible that we can have dinner once every 2 months or once every month, just to talk? We don't have to talk about the past. I just want to know who you are now. You graduated. How's the job market? How's your career going? Can we just talk? We don't know, not as father and son, but can we be friends and build that relationship up? Because like you said, your kids coming back to you as adults. Okay, so just the way I would look at it, I'm not going to look at it as a father and son relationship. But can we build that friendship and have those conversations? And then as it progresses, what then tends to end up happening is, in my mind, is that it starts to open the door because he's going to go back and talk to everybody else, right? And then he's going to tell them about the conversations that y'all are having and everything like that. And they may say their little negative stuff or anything like that, but as consistency happens, you know, others will begin to get curious, as I'll say. Either they'll get curious or they'll just become more defiant. But I think curiosity will start to set in, and they'll want to come and either attend a dinner or try to reach out. And I don't know if it's going to be positive or negative. I don't know. But to try to start with some level of consistency to say, do you mind having dinner? Because if he's responding and, he's accepting invitations, to me, it sounds like it's open, but just got to find some level of consistency. Say, hey, can we have dinner at least once a month? I'm not asking for every weekend, just once a month. No, it'll be on me. We can go almost anywhere you want. I put restrictions on costs, but we can go somewhere, have dinner, and just talk. We don't have to talk about the past. No, let's talk about the future. Let's talk about the present. And if he decides to ask the question about what happened on his own, then that will be the avenue to where you start to have that dialogue and paint the picture that you want to paint and go from there. And then that will make the determination on whether he wants to stay and continue the consistency or if he don't want to continue the consistency. But from what you're telling me, I feel like that the door is there and maybe he needs an invite. And if he's responding to text messages, I don't think there's an annoyance there. I think it's more so, it's kind of a teetering to me from what I hear. So I think if you approach it and say, hey, can we do birthday dinner? And then at the birthday dinner, hey, if it goes well, hey, this was nice. If you're open to it, can we have dinner like once a month, or once every quarter, however the schedule plays out, can we do it once a month or once a quarter and just develop that consistency and start building that consistency level, and you start to build that bond and hopefully it builds up. I'm not 200% aware of the situation, but it sounds like there could be an avenue for an invite for a consistent level of conversation, in my opinion.
I will give it a try. I always thought that last thing I want to do is when I had this small glimpse of opportunity, I didn't want to scare him away. Mm-hmm. But I hear other people, and it hurts me from fathers that spend their whole life trying to get the relationship with their kids.
Yes.
I had one patient that it took him his whole life. Basically what we're talking about. And he was so excited to tell me that after, 25 years that he got to meet his boy again. And the sad thing about it is after he met his boy and got back together, he was diagnosed of cancer, and I think he passed away a few years later. And so he never had that golden opportunity to spend time with his kids. And I think going back to health, and I'm not interjecting in my book or nothing, but when I initially went through my divorce, I remember the silent rooms. I remember just seeing my suitcase and knowing that things are going to work out. I fought tooth and nail to save my marriage. Somebody asked me, "Have you turned over every piece of gravel?" I says, "Yeah." They're every piece of stone. I says, "Yeah, they're gravel." So I fought and I fought and I fought and I fought hard. And what's interesting is they have these little diabetic little machine things called, I think, Dexcom back in the day. And I met a rep and I says, "Hey, can I borrow one of those?" And I put it on me, and they stuck a little needle in my tummy, and then they sealed it off. And I started checking what foods created my sugar levels to go up. And then I was paying attention to my emotions. And I'm laying in bed, and I started to go into the past and feeling sorrow and grief. And the sugar levels in my body start spiking. I'm like, oh, well, I can't have this. And so that was one thing that I didn't want diabetes. And I didn't want to have heart problems of anger and things like this. And so I've been really in check with just kind of protecting myself. So I guess getting back to my boy that has responded to my text message, I just, in a way, don't want to scare him off again. I don't want to go down that road again. It's a painful road. But I guess I don't have anything to lose either, because I don't have any relationship right now with him too. So I have to look at it that way.
And I was just gonna say that, like, you know, you miss 1,000 of the shots that you don't take, right? And you absolutely, you don't have nothing to lose, but you are losing time.
Right.
So if you don't try, then there's always that lingering feeling of, as you say, you try to stay away from what it coulda, shouldas. But if you don't, then you don't know. So there's always that level of opportunity. Man, this is a good conversation because I understand where you're coming from both sides, and that's the crazy part. I understand where you're coming from as a parent, but I've also been a child in the same situation, and it's such a mixed bag of feelings because I understand both sides. But Glenn, is there anything else that you want to say to the Farewell fans in regards to this conversation that we had?
Yeah, thank you for your platform. I'm very curious and interested more, so I will be signing up to your on your Mr. Farewell. I want to be part of this um, um, platform. And if there's anybody out there hurting, just get through that. Just know that there's an equal and opposite effect of your success, whatever you want to do and become. Even though I have a deep love for my children, it's not going to stop me from being who God wants me to be. And whether that's being the author, whether that's being the artist, whether that's being the surgeon, whether that's being the physician, there is potential that lies within me because not only am I my parents' DNA, I am also God's DNA, his spiritual DNA, and I have a lot of potential. So even though I'm working through a lot of things myself, this has been really good for me because it's given me a different outlook, especially for somebody that has gone through it themselves. So I thank you. But if there's something to out there to tell that one person, don't give up on your dreams. Do not give up because there's something great that's going to happen in your life. And I have to do the same. Maybe it's my kids one day. So thank you so much.
Not a problem. I appreciate you coming on here and telling your story. And it's not easy for people to come on here and speak their truth and be vulnerable. And I know I appreciate it, and I know all the fans appreciate it. So, Glenn, thank you for coming on the show. Really appreciate it. Farewell, fans. We will see y'all on the next interview. We'll see you on the next episode. Peace.